Welcome to the short story analysis for On the Sidewalk Bleeding by Evan Hunter. Like always, I want to encourage you to listen carefully to this video and from time to time pause the video and take notes, highlight passages, and if ever you have any questions, remember that you can post them on Edmodo. This short story is typically one that students enjoy because of its theme and because of the meaning that the author is trying to convey. Now, just a quick reminder, when we talk about theme, we're talking about the subject of the text, whereas when we talk about meaning, we're talking about what the author is trying to say about that theme. So if we look at the short story On the Sidewalk Bleeding, one of the main themes that the author is talking about is identity. Who is Andy? And the second major theme that is talked about in the short story is the consequences of our choices. So what I'm curious, having seen these two themes and having identified these two themes in the short story, my question is, what is the author trying to say about identity? And what is the author trying to say or communicate about the consequences of our choices? What I'd invite you to do now is look through your short story and try to find examples or passages that illustrate this theme of identity and the meaning that the author is trying to convey. Then in another color, highlight examples where we see the author talking about the consequences of our choices and show what he is trying to say about those choices. After watching this video and going through your short story, you're going to be asked to post a reply on Edmodo about the message that the author is trying to communicate about the consequences of our choices. Now, to understand what the author is trying to say or communicate about identity, we have to take a close look at how the bystanders reacted to Andy lying on the sidewalk bleeding. Now, by bystanders, I mean the three people or the three sets of people that walked by him. On 3 occasions, there was a drunk man, a grandmother, and a couple that all ignored the fact that Andy was lying on the sidewalk dying. Why is that? Why did they all refuse to help a man that had been stabbed, a man that's lying on the sidewalk dying? I would like you to look in your short story document and highlight the reasons why each of these individuals refused to help. Again, what message is this communicating about identity? One thing that you need to understand is that the bystander's reaction is actually an example of symbolism, which means that there is a literal meaning, so how these people literally saw Andy, but that there's also a symbolic meaning, which means that their reaction represents something more. And so the symbolic meaning behind their reaction is actually society's view about or towards Andy, and especially towards gang members. So again, look closely at the passages and try to figure out what is the message that Evan Hunter, the author, is communicating. The setting of this story is also another clue that we, the reader, have about this message of identity. So I want to draw your attention to the fact that the short story was set in a back alley. So I'm curious, how does the fact that it was set in this back alley contribute to the meaning about identity and the meaning about the consequences of our choices? Look closely on the screen at the 2 images of a back alley. Notice how dark it is. Notice how far from the street it is. and think about what types of people stereotypically hang out in a back alley. Again, these are all clues that should help us understand the meaning of this story better. The next thing I want you to do, after you've decided or figured out why it's set in a back alley, I would like you to highlight and identify the ways that the back alley represents Andy and the way he felt before he was stabbed. So before he got into this, he got jumped by the Guardian members, and like some of the reasons why he might have joined the gang. And then look at how he felt at the end of the story after he was stabbed and while lying on that sidewalk. Now, I just mentioned Andy's choice of becoming a gang member, which actually leads us nicely into the second theme of the story, which is the consequences of our choices. Now, consequences could be good or bad. So again, what is the message that the author is trying to communicate about our choices and what impact it has, especially here on Andy? So to understand that, we have to understand why he became a gang member. So what I'd like you to do is highlight passages that show why Andy decided to join the Royals. What did it bring him? Imagine what he must have been looking for if he decided to join a gang. Once you have figured out why Andy decided to join the gang, I'd like you to look at what positive, and I put positive loosely because we see ultimately this choice got him stabbed and killed. But initially, what positive feelings did Andy think this membership or this belonging to the Royals brought him? Now in this story, Andy is definitely a round character because we definitely see a change in him from the start of the story to the end of the story. Now we see a change in the way he views his association or his membership with the Royals, and we also see a change in the way that he views death. I would like you to look at these two aspects, and I'd like you to identify in your booklet, in your LES booklet, or the short story booklet rather, I'd like you to identify the evolution of Andy's change in the way he saw things. So specifically, what did he think of belonging to the Royals at the start? At what point did it change? And how did he view his membership to the Royals at the end of the story? Highlight evidence to support this. Be ready to talk about this. I want you to do the same thing with death. At the start of the story, did Andy know he was dying? At what point did he realize that he was going to die? What did he think about dying at the end of the story? This short story is very rich in symbolism. At the start of the video, I drew your attention to the fact that this bystander's reaction was actually symbolic of society's views towards Andy and towards gang members. Now what I would like to do is draw your attention to the symbol of the royal jacket. It's actually this jacket that got Andy stabbed in the first place. If you look at the start of your story on page 15, we see that Andy was stabbed because he was a member of the gang. And the only reason the Guardians knew that he was a gang member was because of this jacket. We don't see that there was a fight, there was an altercation, they were yelling at each other, they were mad at each other. We just know that he was stabbed when he stepped out to get cigarettes. The members of the Guardian gang didn't necessarily know Andy, they just knew that he was a member of this gang, once again, because of the jacket. The jacket actually has two very different meanings, and to understand this, you have to once again look at Andy's opinion about the jacket at the start, and then again at the end of the story. So what I would really like you to do now is identify how did Andy view the jacket? What did the jacket mean to Andy at the start when he first joined the gang? And then again, how did he view the jacket at the end of the story? And the jacket also meaning his involvement with the Royals. After you've answered that question, I want you to answer this one. What message was Andy trying to communicate when he used his last ounce of breath and strength to take off the jacket at the end of the story? I really enjoy the end of this story because I find it quite powerful. So I'd invite you to turn to page 20 and look closely at the interaction between Laura and the police officer. Now you have to imagine Laura is distraught. She just found Andy on the sidewalk. He's dead, and she goes to the police officer hoping that he will help her, and she's kind of shocked by his reaction. The police officer responds, "Oh, a royal, huh?" He's kind of dismissive. He expects this. I'm sure this is not the first gang-related crime that's happened. But then Laura does something very powerful at the end of the story. She insists on telling the police officer Andy's name, and she answers, his name is Andy. Why is this important to Laura? What is she trying to do to the police officer by telling him his name? But then again, look at the police officer's response at the end. And what does this communicate about society's view towards Andy? That's it for this video lesson. In Edmodo, you are going to see that I have assigned a quiz. In this quiz, it's actually just one question that I want each of you to answer individually about the meaning of this short story. So I would invite you, after watching this video, to go through your notes, to look carefully and make sure you understand, and then take the quiz and tell me what message the author was trying to communicate. Good luck!